There is a voice in your head that has been talking since you woke up. It has already made about 400 comments today, and you have never once asked it who it works for. You know the voice. It is the one that said something the second you saw the message. The one that spoke while you were getting dressed and decided how the day was going to go. The one that arrived, uninvited, at 2 in the morning last week and reminded you of something you said in 2019. Here is what makes it dangerous. You do not experience it as a voice. You experience it as the truth. When it says you are behind, that does not feel like an opinion. It feels like a fact you happen to be noticing. You are not listening to your thoughts. You are obeying them. And every decision you have made in the last 5 years was made after that voice had already spoken. The job you did not apply for. The message you rewrote 9 times. The conversation you avoided because you already knew how it would go. Except you did not know. The voice told you, and you filed it as knowledge. Over the next half hour, we are going to do something almost nobody does. We are going to take that voice apart, where it came from, what it is actually saying, why you believe it, and exactly how to change what it says. 10 methods in order, because each one makes the next one possible. And the 8th one is where this stops being a video about positive thinking and becomes something you will still be doing a year from now. First, let us handle the obvious objection, because if you are the kind of person who thinks carefully, you are already having it. There is a whole industry that says, if you speak to yourself the right way, the universe rearranges itself to deliver what you want. Money arrives. Opportunities appear. That is not what this is, and I am not going to pretend otherwise to keep you watching. Words do not bend reality. But watch what they actually do, because the real mechanism is less magical and considerably more useful. The voice decides what you attempt. A man who tells himself he is not the kind of person who gets that job does not fail the interview. He never books it. A man who tells himself he always ruins things does not ruin the relationship in one dramatic act. He withdraws early, 100 small times, and calls the result proof. The voice does not attract or repel outcomes. It quietly edits the list of things you are willing to try. And over 10 years, that list is your life. Nothing in your life is decided by what you can do. It is decided by what you attempt. There is also a physical layer to this, and it is not speculation. Repeated thought patterns strengthen the neural pathways that carry them. The more a route is used, the less effort it takes to travel. Neuroscience calls this neuroplasticity. It means the sentence you have repeated 10,000 times is not a belief you hold. It is a road you built. And roads can be built elsewhere. 2,000 years before anyone could image a brain, Marcus Aurelius wrote a note to himself that says the same thing. The soul takes on the color of its thoughts. He was not being poetic. He was describing maintenance. Method 1 is where all of this starts. And it starts by admitting the voice exists. Number 1. Right now, as you listen to this, something is running underneath. Maybe it is evaluating whether this is worth your time. Maybe it is thinking about something you have to do later. That underneath layer never stops. It runs while you shower, while you drive, while you talk to people. It is running during conversations, which is why you sometimes realize you have not heard the last 30 seconds of what someone said. Psychologists estimate most people have somewhere between 6 and 70,000 thoughts a day. The number does not matter. What matters is that a large share of them are the same thoughts, repeating, and you have never audited a single one. Think about how strange that is. You would notice if a person followed you around all day, narrating your performance. You would certainly notice if that person were unkind. But because this narrator lives inside your own skull, using your own voice, you have granted it something you grant no human being: total credibility, permanently, without review. Epictetus, born a slave in the Roman Empire, built his entire philosophy on one distinction: Men are disturbed not by things, but by the opinions they form about things. Read that carefully. He is not saying events do not matter. He is saying that between the event and your suffering, there is a sentence. And the sentence is not the event. Someone does not reply for 6 hours. That is the event. They are pulling away from me is the sentence. You are not reacting to silence. You are reacting to a line of narration that arrived so fast you did not see it get written. Between what happened and how you feel, there is always a sentence. You wrote it. So the first method is simply this. Start hearing it as a voice rather than as reality. For the next few days, when your mood changes, stop and ask a single question. What was just said? Not what happened. What was said about what happened? You will catch it, maybe one time in 10 at first. That is enough. Because the moment you hear it as a sentence, it stops being the truth and becomes a claim. And claims can be examined. But before you examine what it says, there is a stranger question to answer. One that changes how the whole thing feels. Whose voice is it? Number 2. Listen to the specific words it uses when it is harsh with you. Not the general feeling, the actual vocabulary. The particular phrase it reaches for when you have made a mistake. Now ask something uncomfortable. Where did you first hear that phrase? For most people, there is an answer, and it arrives faster than they expect. A parent, a teacher who humiliated them in front of a class, a coach, an ex. Somebody at some point said a version of that sentence to you, and you were young enough, or it hurt enough that you kept it. You have been repeating it in your own voice ever since, and calling it self-awareness. This is the part that tends to land hard, so sit with it. A large portion of what you consider honest self-assessment is a recording. You are not evaluating yourself. You are playing back somebody else's evaluation, made years ago, by a person who is often not qualified, frequently in a bad mood, and in some cases dealing with their own problems by putting them in you. Carl Jung described the mechanism precisely. When an inner situation is not made conscious, it appears on the outside as fate. What he meant is that anything you refuse to look at does not go away. It starts steering, and you experience the results as simply how life is. So, here is the drill, and it takes about 10 minutes. Write down the 3 sentences the voice says most often when it is criticizing you, word for word, exactly as it says them. Then, next to each, write who said it first. And if you genuinely cannot remember, write unknown and move on. Then read the list back. Most people find that 2 of the 3 came from a specific person. And here is the strange relief in that. The sentence does not become less painful, but it becomes attributable. It has an author, and things with authors are opinions, not laws. You are not being honest with yourself. You are quoting someone. Now you know the voice exists, and where some of it came from. Method 3 is where you find out what it actually says, because you have never seen it written down. Number 3. Here is something that happens to almost everyone who does this exercise properly. They write down what the voice has been saying, read it back, and feel physically uncomfortable. Because when you see it on paper, in ordinary handwriting, it reads as cruelty. And it is cruelty you have been administering to yourself daily, for years, without noticing. Speech and text are processed differently. A thought moves too fast to evaluate. A sentence on a page sits still and can be examined. That is the entire reason this works, and it is the reason the Stoics wrote. Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, the book we treat as a philosophical classic, was a private notebook. He never intended it to be read. It is an emperor, at the end of long days, writing his own thoughts down so they would stop running unexamined. He was not recording wisdom. He was auditing his own broadcast, in ink, most nights, for years. So do the same thing for 3 days. Carry something to write on. Every time you notice the voice say something significant, not every thought, just the ones with weight, write it down verbatim. Do not soften it. Do not correct it. Write what it actually said. At the end of 3 days, sit down with the list and do one pass. Mark each line with one of 3 letters. F if it is a fact, something a camera could have recorded. J if it is a judgment. P if it is a prediction about the future. The result is the same for almost everyone. Almost nothing is marked F. The overwhelming majority of what your inner voice tells you about your life consists of judgments and predictions, neither of which is information. You have been running your decisions on a data source that contains almost no data. Your inner voice is not reporting the news. It is writing the editorial. And once you can see the judgments clearly, one specific pattern shows up in them, over and over. Number 4. Look at your audit and notice how the sentences begin. Almost all of them start the same way. I am lazy. I am bad with people. I am not a disciplined person. I am the kind of man who starts things and does not finish them. Now notice what those 2 words do. I am describes a permanent property. It is the same construction you would use for a fact of nature. Iron is heavy, water is wet. I am undisciplined. There is no action available in response to a permanent property, which is exactly why those sentences leave you feeling settled and hopeless at the same time. Compare it with the honest version. I did not do the work today. Or, I feel unmotivated right now. Both are true. Neither is permanent. And both leave a door open that I am lazy closes. This is not word games, and it is not a trick to feel better. It is accuracy. I am lazy is a claim about your nature that no evidence can support. Because a nature cannot be observed, only behavior can. I did not start until 4 is a claim about a Tuesday. One of them is true. One of them is a story wearing the clothes of a fact. Epictetus placed the whole of human freedom in one faculty he called prohairesis, the power of choice. The reason the I am construction is so damaging is that it argues in 3 words that prohairesis does not apply to you. It moves you out of the category of things that can choose and into the category of things that simply are a certain way. So the method: for 1 week, catch every I am that is followed by something negative and rewrite it in one of 2 forms: I did or I feel. I am a failure becomes I failed at this specific thing. I am anxious becomes I feel anxiety right now. Same content, completely different consequence. I am is a life sentence. I did is a Tuesday. But rewriting the grammar is not the same as testing the claim. Method 5 is where you stop editing the voice and start cross-examining it. Number 5. Here is the thing about your inner critic that nobody points out. It has never once been asked to provide evidence. It makes serious accusations about your character, your worth, your future, and you accept every one of them without cross-examination. No court on earth operates that way, including the ones the Romans built. So, put it on the stand. 4 questions, in order. You can do this in 90 seconds, and you should do it out loud when you are alone. First, what is the evidence for this? Not the feeling. Specific instances. If the claim is, I always let people down, name the times. Most people get 2, and both are older than 3 years. Second, what is the evidence against it? This is harder, because the mind does not volunteer it. Name the times you did not let someone down. There will be dozens, and you will notice you had to work to retrieve them, while the accusations arrived instantly. That asymmetry is not truth. It is a filing system. Third, would I say this to someone I respect, in these words, in this tone? This one is the killer. Almost nobody would. And that gap between what you say to yourself and what you would say to another person in the identical situation is not humility. It is a habit you would find alarming if you saw someone else practicing it. Fourth, what would I say to them instead? Whatever answer you give to that question is the accurate version. Not the kind version, the accurate one. You are gentler with other people, Not because you are being nice, but because you can see them clearly, and you cannot see yourself. Seneca wrote that we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. The cross-examination is how you find out which one you are currently in. You would never let anyone speak to your friend the way you speak to yourself. Now, the voice is exposed. Method 6 is where most people make the mistake that undoes everything. They try to argue with it. Number 6. You have tried to argue with it. Everyone has. The voice says something harsh, and you push back. No, that is not true. I am doing fine. And then the voice answers, and you answer that. And 20 minutes later you are still in the argument, having produced nothing. Here is why arguing fails. The argument is more commentary. You have not left the loop. You have doubled the traffic inside it. Every rebuttal is another sentence about you rather than an action taken by you. So you do not argue. You replace. And the replacement follows one rule. Convert the judgment into an instruction. This is going badly becomes, what is the next sentence? I am not ready for this becomes, what is the first thing that happens in the room? I always mess this up becomes, what did I do last time that worked? Notice what each conversion does. A judgment demands agreement or disagreement. An instruction demands an action. One of them ends. The other never does. Marcus Aurelius wrote the line everyone quotes, and almost nobody applies. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. The practical version of that, in your own head, is that the obstacle is not the harsh sentence. It is your belief that you must resolve the sentence before you can act. You do not need to feel confident. You need to type the next line. You do not need to believe you deserve the job. You need to send the application. The feeling is allowed to remain unresolved while the work happens. And this is the single most freeing thing in this entire video, because it removes the requirement that you win an internal argument before your life is permitted to move. You do not have to win the argument. You have to leave the room. Method 7 changes something about how you do all of this, and it is so simple that most people dismiss it, which is why most people never get the benefit. Quick one before we go on. If there is a sentence your inner voice says to you that you have never told another human being, you do not have to type the sentence. Just type the word broadcast. I want you to see how many people have one. Number 7. Everything so far has happened silently, inside. This method requires you to say it out loud, alone, and it will feel ridiculous the first time. Do it anyway, because there is a real mechanism underneath it. A thought that stays internal is never tested. It does not have to make sense. It does not have to hold together, and it never gets heard by the part of you that evaluates language. Say it out loud, and it enters a different channel. You become, briefly, the listener rather than the speaker. And an enormous number of the sentences that feel devastating in silence sound obviously overblown the moment they are spoken. Try it once with the harshest thing the voice says to you. Say it aloud, in an ordinary tone as though reading a shopping list. Most people report the same thing. It sounds absurd. It sounds like something a dramatic teenager would say. In your head, it had the weight of a verdict. In the room, it is just a sentence, and not a very good one. Then use the same channel in the other direction. When you set your intention for the day, say it aloud rather than thinking it. Not shouted at a mirror, spoken plainly, once, like a decision. Today, I do the hard task first. I do not answer in anger today. Epictetus gave the order of operations. First, say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do. He specified saying, not thinking, not intending, saying. In a world without writing for most people, speech was how a commitment became real. It still is. A thought can hide. A sentence said out loud has to stand up. Now, Everything up to this point has been about the day you are in. Method 8 is about what you do at the end of it, and it is the practice this entire video was built around. Number 8. There is a specific practice that separates people who read philosophy from people who are changed by it, and it takes about 5 minutes a night. Seneca described his own version of it in detail. When the light was out and his household had gone quiet, he would go back over the entire day, every word, every action, and examine it. And he said something important about how he did it. He hid nothing from himself and he spared himself nothing, but he was not harsh. He was a judge reviewing a case, not a prosecutor building one. That distinction is the whole thing. You already review your day. You do it lying in bed at midnight, involuntarily, and it consists almost entirely of the worst moments replayed at random. That is not review. That is being ambushed by your own memory. The difference between Seneca's practice and what you currently do is that his was deliberate, structured, finished, and closed. Here is the version to use. 5 minutes, on paper, before sleep. 4 questions in this order, and the order matters. 1. What did I do well today? Start here, and do not skip it because it feels self-indulgent. It is not self-esteem work. It is correcting a filing system that stores failures instantly and successes reluctantly. Name one thing. It can be small. 2. Where did I fall short? Name it plainly, without adjectives about your character. I avoided the call, not I was a coward again. The first is a record. The second is a verdict, and verdicts are the thing we are removing. 3. What did my voice say today that was not true? This is where the day's audit gets closed. Write the sentence and write the accurate version next to it. This is the repetition that builds the new pathway. 1 line a night, done properly, beats an hour of positive thinking done vaguely. 4. What will I do differently tomorrow? 1 specific action. Not be better. 1 action, small enough that you will actually do it. Then close the notebook. And this part is not decoration. It is the mechanism. The closing is what tells your mind the review is complete. The reason your 2 in the morning replay never ends is that it was never formally finished. A reviewed day can be put down. An unreviewed day follows you into the dark and demands to be processed at the worst possible hour. Review your day deliberately at 9, or your mind will review it involuntarily at 2. Do this for 30 nights, and something shifts that no single insight can produce. You stop having a relationship with your inner voice that is purely reactive. You have a scheduled meeting with it, on your terms, at a time you choose. And everything outside that meeting gets quieter. 2 methods left. The next one is about the voice you have not built yet. Number 9. Notice how you talk about the person you want to become. Almost always in the conditional. When I am more disciplined. Once I get confident. If I ever become the kind of person who does that. The problem with the conditional is that it puts the identity after the behavior. And the behavior never comes, because you are waiting to feel like the person before you act like him. That order does not work, and it has never worked for anyone. The Stoics reversed it deliberately. Epictetus taught students to act as though they already possessed the virtue they were training, to behave as a patient man behaves, while still being an impatient man, on the grounds that there is no other route. You do not become patient, and then act patiently. You act patiently, badly, repeatedly, and patience is the residue. So the method is to change the tense, not I will be someone who stays calm under pressure. Instead, I am someone who stays calm under pressure, said now, while you are not calm, and while it is not yet true. And I want to be precise about what that is, because it is easy to hear it as delusion. It is not a claim about the present. It is a declaration of allegiance. You are not asserting that you are currently calm. You are announcing which side you are on, so that when the moment arrives you already know which way you are supposed to move. That is what identity does. It is not a description of your behavior. It is the thing that decides your behavior at the moment of pressure. Choose one. One sentence about who you are becoming and say it out loud each morning, the spoken channel from Method 7, for 30 days. Not a list. One sentence, so that it has somewhere to lodge. You do not act like the person you are. You become the person you keep acting like. And that raises the final question, the one that decides whether any of this survives past this week. Number 10. You will do this for 4 days. On the 5th day, you will forget. And on the 6th, you will notice you forgot and conclude that it did not work. That is not a prediction about you specifically. It is what happens to almost everyone, and knowing it in advance is most of the defense against it. So understand what you are actually doing, because it changes how the failure feels. The voice you currently have is not a personality trait. It is a road built by thousands of repetitions over decades. You are not deleting it. That is not available. You are building a second road alongside it, and for a while, the old one will still be faster, because it has been paved for 20 years, and yours was laid on Tuesday. This is what the Stoics called ascesis, training, not intensity, repetition. Not one dramatic reversal, but a small, correct action performed on ordinary days when nothing feels like it is changing. They compared themselves to athletes constantly, and the comparison holds exactly. Nobody expects to feel stronger after one session, and nobody quits because of it. Practically, this means 2 things. First, expect to miss days, and decide now what happens when you do. You resume. That is the entire protocol. No restarting, no beginning again on Monday. No treating a gap as a verdict. Second, judge by weeks, not days. Ask at the end of week 4 whether the voice at 2 in the morning sounds different. It will. And Seneca's warning applies here more than anywhere. We do not have too little time. We waste a great deal of what we have. The waste, in this case, does not look dramatic. It looks like starting this 6 separate times over 3 years and never getting past week 2. You are not fixing the voice. You are outvoting it, one repetition at a time. 10 methods. The broadcast. Hear it as a voice, not as truth. The inheritance. Find out whose voice it is. The audit. 3 days on paper, marked F, J, or P. The 2 words, I am, becomes I did, or I feel. The cross-examination, 4 questions, evidence demanded. The replacement rule, convert judgment into instruction. The spoken word, say it out loud, once. The evening ledger, 5 minutes, 4 questions, closed. The future voice, change the tense. The compound, miss days, resume, judge by weeks. Now, your challenge, and it is deliberately small because large challenges are how people fail on day 4. 7 days, 2 things only. Method 3, write down what the voice actually says, verbatim, whenever it says something with weight. And method 8, 5 minutes before sleep, the 4 questions, on paper. Nothing else from this video. 2 practices, 7 days. Then come back to this video and comment the word ledger, and 1 line about what changed. Not whether you feel better. What the voice sounded like on day 7 compared with day 1. That is the measurement that matters, and it is the one nobody ever reports because nobody ever writes down where they started. One last thing. Everything in this video assumes something most people cannot actually do. Sit alone with your own thoughts, without a screen, without music, without reaching for something. That silence is where the voice becomes audible. And it is also the thing modern life is engineered to prevent. If you cannot get there, none of the 10 methods have anywhere to happen. That video is on your screen right now. 5 Stoic reasons being alone makes you unstoppable. It is the ground this entire practice stands on. I will see you there.